Hello everyone and welcome aboard. Today we're going to discuss what it takes to be a captain, the process to get your 100 ton, everything involved, and the hiccups I had when I first did it. And be sure to listen to the end because I have some advice for all the mariners who are looking to become captains. The entire process can be intimidating, so hopefully this video helps you figure out what it takes and helps you get the process completed the first time. As a US captain, I'll be going over the US process. The requirements for receiving a 100-ton master credential are being a US citizen and at least 19 years of age. I realize that some of you may be viewing from other countries. If that's the case, be sure to check with your local government for their process. Also, be sure to subscribe. I'll be dropping another video here shortly on what is on the US Coast Guard exam, so stay tuned for that. While the tests may be different across countries, the information on the test has been adopted internationally. So let's get right into it with what being a captain even means. In the United States, it is mandatory to be a captain if you are piloting a vessel that accepts paying passengers. This is one of the main reasons boaters are interested in getting their captain's license. Other reasons may be to obtain insurance or get hired on a larger commercial vessel. It is also common for other boaters who don't intend on working in the boating industry to get their license as a way to develop their skills. If this is the case, I would recommend understanding the responsibilities that are involved with becoming a captain. Captains are responsible for everything that happens on board their vessel. Normal accidents that could happen on the water could end up being criminal charges for captains. For this reason, it's important to ask yourself if being a captain is something you want for your career, or if it's just something that you want for the title. There are many different levels to being a captain, from 6-packs to 500-ton cargo pilots. The popular credential that we're going to talk about today is the 100-ton master's license, which is a great place to start your career. The 100-ton license is a great first step, and it could also be your only step. It covers any vessel from 0 to 100 tons. 100 gross tons may seem small compared to an oil tanker, but it covers a vast majority of all vessels. And unless you live in Monaco, 100 tons should qualify you for just about any boat in your area. The 100-ton process includes 25-ton, 50-ton, and 100-ton. And it also includes inland and near coastal. There are also endorsements for sailing and towing. The process for all these designations is the same, and the course you take is the same. Which designation you receive is determined by the Coast Guard, based off your experience. This experience is called sea time. Sea time is something that should be a primary concern when you're looking into getting your license. You should have your sea time completed before you start this process, as it's one of the most complicated parts of the application. I'll be going over how much sea time you need and why towards the end of this video. But for now, the following steps are all things you can do simultaneously to prepare for your application. The steps are a medical evaluation, a drug test, first aid and CPR certification, a TWIC card, your course itself, and your sea time. And then finally, you finish it off with the application and you pay your fees. I have included a Coast Guard provided checklist for all these items located in the description below. Also, all the necessary information discussed in this video is available in the description at the National Maritime Center's website. So let's take it from the top with the medical examination.
Open wide. Say
The medical evaluation is a physical that includes an eye, hearing, and a colorblind exam. Don't worry though, it is still possible to become a captain if you are colorblind. You just have to be able to pass the test and differentiate between green and red navigation lights. The form for this medical exam and all the other required forms in this video are located at the Coast Guard's website, which is also linked in the description. You can take this medical form to any physician to have it filled out and completed. However, in my experience, doctors that have not completed this form before may have some difficulty in getting it filled out properly. For this reason, I drive to my nearest commercial port, where there are offices that specialize in physicals for commercial mariners. It can be extremely frustrating to go to your private physician and have them half-ass one of the most important documents for your career.
You using the whole fist, Doc?
Just relax.
These mariner-oriented offices make sure that there are no issues in your form. You can also perform your drug test at many of them. The drug test is the only item on this list that is particularly time-sensitive to when you submit your application. The drug test has to be completed within 6 months of your application. I don't know whether this is 6 months from the time that the Coast Guard reads your application or if it's 6 months from the time you submit it, but in any case, I usually take mine as late as possible. The entire review process can take a number of months before you actually receive your credential, so it's better to be safe than sorry. Also, don't do drugs. First aid and CPR is pretty straightforward. You just need to complete a class within 1 year and have a certificate for that class, and it only takes a couple hours. It's definitely the easiest thing on this list. It does, however, need to be renewed every 2 years, whereas your actual credential only has to be renewed every 5. A TWIC card is a form of identification that also acts as a background check. It is mandated by the Maritime Transportation Security Act, and what it does is it gives you access to national facilities and vessels, things of that nature. I've never used this for that reason at all. I just use it for getting on airplanes because it's got a sweet little known traveler's number on the back of it, and you gotta get that TSA pre-check, baby. But beyond that, if you aren't working at a port, it just works as a background check for your mariner's credential. It requires an application and an appointment, which you can find at the TSA's website, again, link below. It's a headache to have to complete, but it's a pretty cool not a terrorist card. It's all holographic and stuff. Finally, we get to the actual boating-oriented steps, the test and the course. The Merchant Mariner Credential Test for a 100-ton license can be completed at a Coast Guard facility. However, there are many accredited schools that help teach you how to pass the test. These schools usually come in 2 or 6-week durations, and they have the test at the end. They go over general boater knowledge, they teach you how to read a chart, they go over general safety rules, and describe the rules of the road. Online versions of this class have become very popular for boaters due to their remote location. However, it is still my impression that the online classes require in-class testing. I took mine into school, and I thought it was one of the most enjoyable classroom experiences I've ever had. I highly recommend going and taking this class with other like-minded boaters who want to learn with you. The test itself, I'll go into more depth in a different video. It consists of 5 exams that have anything to do from construction of a vessel, to chart plotting, to knowing the rules of the road. The layout of these exams are always changing, but I firmly believe that anyone who is determined enough can take and pass these classes and become a captain, at least on paper. Notice how I didn't say anything about a driving portion of the captain's course.
Move over, Swanson, I'm driving.
That is because all of your experience is supposed to have already happened. And the Coast Guard determines this experience based on sea time. Sea time is one of the more complicated processes to understand in this whole application process, but it really is quite simple. Sea time is measured in days. A day is considered anything over 4 hours in a 24-hour time period. The number of days you need is determined based off which designation you're going for. The near coastal or ocean one needs 720 days, and the inland one, which is like rivers and harbors and lakes, only needs 360. Of these days, 90 of them have to be within the last 3 years. However, they do go all the way back to your 16th birthday, and they never expire. To determine what tonnage rating you get, the Coast Guard looks at the size of vessel that you had your days on. This calculation is very specific and is linked down below, but in summary, you need 180 days on a vessel above 51 gross tons for a 100-ton license, and 180 days on a vessel over 26 gross tons for a 50-ton license. Or you can double the days and get a 100-ton designation for vessels above 34 gross tons and a 50-ton license with 360 days on a vessel above 17 gross tons. If you don't meet these criteria, they have designations for it, but essentially if you don't meet these criteria, then they give you the 25 gross ton. It's a little more hard to explain verbally, but it's pretty simple when you read it, so go check out that link. Finally, you take all this time that you work so hard to accumulate and you put it in a small vessel sea service form. This form has 3 parts. A section that you provide all the information on the vessel used. This is where you put the name, the vessel type, where you operate it mostly, those kind of things. And if you're using multiple vessels, then you need to fill out multiple sea service forms for each one. Next is the section you log your days. It looks like a calendar. And again, if you're doing multiple vessels, be sure that you don't put 20 days in the same month for 2 different vessels. Make sure you're logging your hours accordingly and compare them to each other. Lastly, at the bottom is a section for you and the vessel's owner or operator to pinky promise that all your hours are legit. Owners of a vessel can sign their own form as long as they provide proof of ownership with their sea service form. The Coast Guard does double check. I once signed off on my own hours as an operator, and they hit me back up and asked for a form from the owner. But with that, All the pieces of the puzzle are completed, and you go and you fill out your application. Along with the application, there are fees to pay out online. You go into a Coast Guard designated payment service and you pay for your application to be completed. There are other fees associated with some of the other stuff you do. For example, your first aid test, you'll have to go and find someone to administrate that to you. Courses vary in price, but in my opinion are worth the investment. And then the TWIC card also has its own fee attached to it. The final application form does ask you for a few more things. It wants to know if you've ever been a criminal, and you also have to fill out which credential you're applying for. Just be sure to fill out the application properly and you'll be able to complete it. Now for my message on everyone who's considering becoming a captain and all those new captains. I firmly believe that anyone who applies themselves to this process can complete it. It is a great experience, and in terms of a career investment, in my opinion, totally worth doing. But as I mentioned before, there is no boat driving in Miss Coast Guard's boating school.
Did I pass?
Just because you received your master's credential does not make you the best captain on your side of the Atlantic. Insurance companies will still ask for your resume, employers will still ask for your resume. The red booklet that says captain will only get your foot in the door. It is still important to continue gaining experience in the direction that you want to go. At first, you won't be able to jump on every boat you want just because it's under 100 tons. Start with small boats and make your way up the ladder. Continue to learn under more experienced captains and explore places that you've never been, and be sure to subscribe. Hopefully, I was able to explain a little bit about what it takes to be a captain and smooth sailing.